And then I realized when we came back together as friends that we just had such different risk tolerance. And mine was extraordinarily high, and the healthiest thing for me was to not be mad at someone who was more scared. And the world needs you to recognize where you are on the risk tolerance meter. We need doctors, and we need people, jurists, senators, lawyers. Like, we need people who are willing to do the work. And then we need people who are willing to take outrageous risks, creatively, narrative, politically. And so it's really figuring and listening to yourself. What makes me feel good? And what is sort of the unstoppable part of me? What story must I tell that I would risk my life and or a friendship for? You know, what are those values? And I think that ends up being just so important to understand that risk part of yourself.
Have you found that you better understand that part of yourself now at this stage of your life?
I do. I think, you know, it's interesting. One thing I was going to say that we have in common is that we both took these enormous creative risks, right, to expose ourselves through our work, through our relationships. And we both became book publishers, which is like the most, you know, you were the most attentive to detail and like willing to dive into the minutia. So it's like the desire to, when you're a risk taker, to have control over glamour and periods.
It is a balance. It's really why the punctuation goes inside the quotation marks. I just had to lecture my students about this. And I don't know, some of you don't know this, but I actually was teaching here at Oxy. And I got a 3-year teaching position at Rutgers, which I'm finishing up now because they asked me to stay for a 4th year. It's fun, but I was teaching my students how to punctuate dialogue every semester. And then they're like, we learned it differently in another class. That teacher was wrong. So I know deeply about that minutia. And I'm actually not a grammar person per se, but however you want to write, it's fine. But you will punctuate your dialogue correctly. Every time you use my class. It matters. It just does.
So, sunsetting as a concept, having part of your plan be wanting to move towards something new. I'm living in New York right now, and I'm learning how to ice skate.
Woo!
And so my schedule at work, everyone's like, what does this mean, ice skating on Tuesdays, Thursdays? And you're unavailable for editorial meetings.
It's literal.
Because I'm in adult 1. Although I just have to adult 2. Yeah.
Woo!
Natural. I learned how to stop.
Like Gen Xers are going to get the
Right?
Pig.
Just imagine what our top will be like in 20 years. It's going to be amazing. But I think this idea of creating room in, you know, it's creating room for joy, all of these things. We're creating room to encounter the new, you know, to become beginner again, to encounter fresh air in New York. Nice,
Good luck with that.
To encounter new ways of thinking. I think one of the things that's been most surprising about the ice skating for me is realizing that I am a bilateral being, and that I am naturally really good at turning this way, but not this way. And it's like almost inhabiting 2 different bodies. When my lovely instructor, who's 18, is like, now turn the opposite direction and then turn into them. But to realize it's so important, you know, we were talking about Johanna Hedbach and the whole idea that they have in their book about disability, that it's something that every we'll experience it differently. You know, but this idea of really experiencing the body. How do we in a culture that privileges a visuality of a, like, if we could just have, you know, when I think about biodiversity, I think in insects, I think about, you know, obviously insects, I think about that like models are like praying mantises, but like you know, there's beetles, there's so many different kinds of bugs. And then we have social media that's sort of driven all the bugs to want to be praying mantises. And so you have these cute little beetles sawing themselves and sticking bits and bobs. And it's just crazy. I don't know where I'm going with this.
Pretty brilliant, though.
I'm just going to keep mine. But I got where you were going.
Where was I going?
Trying new things, sunsetting, physicality.
There's a logic there. I need to work on the essay for
But no, I mean, it's interesting because the older you get, the more rigid you get. But I have been, especially, it started during the worst part of COVID, when there was a lot of isolation. I decided to teach myself how to decorate cakes. Because those cake decorating videos on TikTok are just so hypnotic. And so now I am like a super professional cake decorator. And it's so fun. I have like a little cake decorating hand, like toolbox.
Nice.
And when I get it out, everyone's like, uh-oh. And I'm like, yep. And I even bought bakery boxes and I deliver my goods to people.
Nice.
And my wife also teaches, and so I bake things for her to take to school. And so she's very popular. She's also the department head, but I'm sure that doesn't have anything to do with it. But I actually find it to be very exciting to learn new things. And it's interesting because one of the main arenas in which I do not want to learn new things is with like physicality. Like I'm not taking a tennis lesson.
I invited Roxanne to go ice skating with me, and she said no. That she can watch.
No, but at the same time, like, I keep thinking, my wife Debbie and I have been talking a lot about, like, if not now, when? Because TikTok, and especially with the sort of weird direction the world is taking, like, okay, why not when? Why not now? So I've been doing things I would never have imagined doing before. Like, we went to Antarctica.
Nice.
Climbing in a glacier, horrible.
It looks so good on social media.
But it looked really good. It did on the gram. I was just like,
Okay.
cool. I did get a cute red carpet.
Yeah.
And it's free. And I kept telling myself, oh my God, I'm so excited I'm getting a free carpet. It wasn't free. I mean, it was free, but it was not. Because it's expensive to go to Antarctica. But I actually am enjoying like trying new things and doing like adventurous things. I'm not adventurous, but I married an adventurous person. And so now, like we went to Mongolia, great country. I enjoyed it. But at one point in the trip, they were like, you can stay at a hotel in Ulaanbaatar, or you could go stay in a ger, which is a form of housing, in the hinterlands, and there is a toilet and a sink. And I was like, I stayed in a hotel. And she went to the ger, and she was like, it was transformative. And I was like, the Shangri-La was transformative too. I even though I'm trying new things, like there are some boundaries. And there were like 4 of us that stayed behind from the group. And I was like, yes, the winners are right here. And we got to go do some amazing sightseeing. There's a lot to do, and there's also this massive, like 240-foot statue of Genghis Khan. He's everywhere there. And so it's good to also know your limits, like emotionally. Because there were bugs all over the ger. She sent me pictures, and I was like, they would have had to drive me back.
So if we had to talk about one last thing, I want